So the fiscal authorities have shown their hand. The Monetary Policy Authority,
Yeah.
the committee, in the next couple of days, will get to know what their hand is. But then, about 2 weeks ago, the International Monetary Fund says Nigeria needs a basket of coherent policies cutting across fiscal, monetary, and structural. Do you think Nigeria still needs a structural policy aside this short-term recovery plan?
Structural change means you're actually going down to the foundation of the economy. I think that happens, but that doesn't happen overnight. The monetary policy is to ensure that even if we are growing within the context of a stable price environment. So what the monetary policy is going to be, committee is going to have to do is to send the right and consistent signals at this time, which makes sure that it dovetails into this economic recovery and growth plan, and what the fiscal authorities are doing, because the fiscal authorities are borrowing right now. Our bonds have been listed, our bonds are priced. If we do anything that is unorthodox, you will see that the price of Nigerian bonds will be reflected in the price of our bonds. So we are not as independent, economically independent as we think we are, because we are playing in the big stage now. We have raised $1 billion, we are tapping into another $500 million, and we need to be seen to be an orthodox candidate and participant in the global financial community. We cannot be mavericks, and we cannot do things that are, are reckless at this time. And that is what the IMF is saying, that you should have a coherent basket of policies so that you don't fall back on, go back into ideological backsliding.
So for you, Nigeria at this time does not need any structural reforms. But even if we do, what kind of reforms are you looking for?
I think we do. I didn't say we don't, but I'm saying that it has to be done. There's a sequence of reforms. You have trade policy, you have investment policy, you have monetary policy, you have fiscal policy, and then most of these things are actually beginning to affect the structure. So to take structural changes in isolation of all of this is not the strategic thing to do. All of these things are put together, and if you look at the economic growth and recovery plan, some of the pillars there are actually addressing the structural change, only that it is encapsulated in what you call the ERGP, which is the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. And I think that we should give it a chance, and that we need to maintain the momentum which we've had in the last 3 months. And everybody in Nigeria can see it in the last 3 months. Things have been moving, things are aligned, and I think they will continue to move from now on.
So, in line with trying to stay on track of getting that sustainable recovery and growth that is being envisioned by the federal government, they're also talking about likely sale of assets. I spoke to Dolapo a few minutes ago. If you listen to the conversation and talk about the privatization of some of the oil assets. But for you, what are the likely non-oil assets that you think should be privatized?
I think that first and foremost, privatization comes in many forms. Concessioning of our airports should have been done yesterday. Because if you look at the plan, in the budget and in the plan, there's still expenditure planned for airports, which are totally, dysfunctional. If you concession them, then private money will come in there. I think that the question of refineries, we should have sold them, all of them, for that matter, ages ago. There are a number of non-strategic assets that we need to sell, and we need to wind down our interest, because government, apart from being a lukewarm investor, can also be an obstructionist when it comes to the boardroom and all of that. So we need to get government out of this business so that private sector can run. But where there are strategic social interventions, we've seen in power that the private sector, the type of privatization we had was not adequate. So we need to now take a look at it and revisit the entire process and ensure that we tweak it to make sure that we can achieve our desired objective. In which case, the central bank will come and give some forbearance to the lenders, the federal government will meet its own part of the obligations, and the private owners of these assets will now begin to live up to the expectation, because without power, you are going nowhere.
And in terms also of improving transport infrastructure, which is one of the key execution priorities of the Economic Recovery Growth Plan, the federal government says that some of the select public enterprises will be privatized to optimize their efficiency. How about, for instance, the railway sector?
That's a great question, and quite frankly, yesterday we broke ground on the Lagos-Ibadan standard gauge, which is going all the way from Lagos to Kano. That in 18 months, you would have rapid transit for passengers, for cargo and all that, and that's a game changer. Without rail transportation, Without a reform in that sector, you will find that this economy goes nowhere. Because right now, distribution and logistics costs are actually growing at about 11% of total cost of business in this country today. If you can reduce that significantly, you can actually reduce inflation. The cost of producing a good in Lagos and the cost of transporting it to Kano almost always doubles the cost, apart from the roads and the damage to our infrastructure. So you hit it on the nail. These things have to happen simultaneously, but we have to prioritize which is more important. As far as I'm concerned, rail is important, power is important, but more than anything else, reform of the foreign exchange market to make it more efficient, more transparent, more credible, and so that the supply mechanism, and it's not done at the whims and caprices of anybody. That is what is key. With that, international investment will come, domestic investment will come, and Nigeria will be in a different place by this time next year.
But you will agree that that seems to be more of a medium to long-term expectation. In the very short term, what is your expectation?
In the short term, we need to reform the foreign exchange market. Reforming of the foreign exchange market is not a medium-term thing. It's something that we'll do tomorrow, right? We can decide to put money in every week or every day we like, and whenever it rains, we put some more. Whenever it's sunny, we put some more. We have to have a clear, credible, consistent program so that everybody knows that we can have a predictable exchange rate. Nigerians are not looking for a stable exchange rate. They are looking for a predictable exchange rate where you can get the supply. The central bank has done a lot in the recent days, but we have to move forward and move to that point where the structure of that market is changed, and there are two-way quotes. The oil companies can sell into the banking system. The central bank can participate and intervene frequently to get a managed floating exchange rate. But we have to reform that market completely and totally. We cannot do it by way of fire brigade approach.
Bismarck Rewane, CEO of Financial Derivatives Company, always a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you very much, Harriet.
Well, Business Morning returns in just a moment. We've got another perspective to this conversation. Stay with us.